story was sent to me by a woman I'll call Dana. She's in her late 20s now, but this happened when she was 22, working the overnight shift at a large 24-hour grocery store in a mid-sized city in the Midwest. She says it's the kind of store you've definitely been to. Bright lights, clean floors, self-checkout up front, bakery smell that never really goes away even at 3 in the morning. She worked the overnight shift 3 times a week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. and she said in the beginning she actually liked it. Quieter, fewer managers, the small overnight crew all knew each other. She'd drink bad coffee in the break room at midnight, restock shelves, zone the cereal aisle. Pretty standard. She said things started getting weird in October. Not Halloween dramatic weird, just off, little things she kept dismissing. The first thing she noticed was a man who started coming in regularly around 2 a.m. She couldn't tell you exactly when he first showed up. That's the thing about regular customers. You don't notice them until suddenly you realize you've been seeing them for weeks. But she noticed him. He was tall, she said maybe 6'2", 6'3", always wore the same outfit, dark pants, a light-colored button-down shirt, not a uniform, not workout clothes, just office clothes. At 2 in the morning, his hair was always the same too, dark, parted on one side, like he'd just come from somewhere. He never bought much. Maybe a bottle of juice, a pack of crackers, sometimes just a candy bar. He always paid at register 6, which was the one farthest from the entrance, closest to the back of the store. Dana's register was number 2. She'd watch him walk past her without making eye contact, pay at 6, and leave. She asked Marcus, the overnight security guy, if he'd noticed the man. Marcus had. Said he seemed harmless. Probably just worked a late shift somewhere nearby. Dana decided Marcus was probably right. Then one night in late October, Dana was restocking the beverage section, which was in the back right corner of the store, almost behind the dairy wall, when she heard footsteps in the aisle behind her. Slow, deliberate, like someone browsing. She turned around. It was him, the man. He was standing at the other end of the aisle looking at her, not at the products, at her. And when she turned, he didn't look away. He just kept looking. She said she felt something weird in her chest. Not quite fear yet, more like your body registering something before your brain does. She grabbed 2 more bottles off her cart like she was busy, put them on the shelf, and then walked in the opposite direction out of the aisle. She went to find Marcus. He wasn't at his usual spot by the entrance. She walked the perimeter of the store, which she says she never normally does. The overnight layout basically has the cashiers and the back crew in separate orbits. She found Marcus near the deli counter, eating a bag of pretzels he was definitely not supposed to have opened yet. "That guy's here again," she told him. Marcus shrugged. "He just paid. He's probably leaving." He was right. By the time they got back to the front, the man was gone. Register 6 showed a transaction. 1 bottle of orange juice, $2.47. Dana went back to stocking. But here's where it changes. About a week later, it was a Tuesday night. She remembers because it was right after she'd swapped a shift. She went to pull a box from the very back of the bottom shelf in the paper goods aisle. When she crouched down and looked into that dark space under the shelf, there was something there that shouldn't have been. A piece of paper, folded in half. She almost didn't pick it up, but she did. She opened it. Inside, in small, very neat handwriting, was a single sentence. "I've been watching you for longer than you know." Dana said she stood up so fast she knocked a case of paper towels off the shelf. She took the note straight to Marcus and then to her shift manager, a woman named Priya. Priya called the store's loss prevention contact. Loss prevention reviewed the camera footage from that aisle over the last several days. They found footage of the man crouching at that exact spot. Shelf 12, paper goods, 4 days earlier. At 2:17 a.m., he was there for 43 seconds. Then he got up, walked calmly to register 6, bought a pack of crackers, and left. They pulled more footage, going back further. Dana said Priya came to find her in the break room afterward. She said Priya looked pale, not dramatic pale, just tired pale. The kind of pale that comes from seeing something you didn't want to see. "He's been coming in for 8 weeks, Priya said. "Not just here, he walks the whole store. But he always ends up near wherever you're working." Dana didn't work another overnight shift at that store. She put in her notice the following day. Loss prevention contacted the police. She doesn't know what happened with the investigation. The man never came back, at least not while she worked there. But here's the part that really stays with her. She found out later, talking to one of the other overnight employees, that register 6, the one he always used, had a broken camera. The overhead security camera above that register had been malfunctioning for 3 months. Whatever he'd paid for, whatever he'd done at that register, none of it was on film. She says she doesn't know if that's a coincidence. She doesn't think it is. Okay, This next one. I have to be honest with you, this one bothered me for a few days after I read it. It's from a guy I'll call Eli. He's a paramedic. Has been for about 6 years. He submitted this story and said, quote, "I've never told anyone about this because I know how it sounds. But it happened. I was sober, I was rested, I wasn't stressed. Alright, Eli, here it is. This was 3 years ago. Eli was working a night shift 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a fire and EMS station in a rural county. He loves the rural station, he said. It's quieter than city work. You get more downtime between calls. The station itself is small. 2 bays, a kitchen, a small rec room with a TV that only gets 3 channels, and 2 bunk rooms in the back. His partner that night was a woman named Bev. They'd worked together for 2 years. He describes her as the kind of partner you actually want on a bad call. Calm, sharp, no unnecessary talking. They got along well. They had a few calls early in the shift, nothing major. A fall at an assisted living facility. A teenager with a possible allergic reaction, the standard back and forth of a rural EMS night. By about 1 a.m. they were back at the station with nothing incoming. Eli went to the bunk room to sleep. Bev said she'd take the first watch in the rec room since she wasn't tired. Standard arrangement. He doesn't know how long he slept, but he woke up to his radio crackling, a call coming in. Chest pains, possible cardiac, about 12 miles out. He sat up, swung his feet to the floor, and that's when he noticed something. Bev was in the other bunk, asleep, which was fine, except for one thing. If she was asleep in the bunk room, who had been in the rec room? He stood there for a second trying to think it through. Maybe she'd come back to sleep after he did. Maybe the radio just woke him up and she was already here. That made sense. That was probably it. He shook her shoulder. "Bev, we've got a call." She sat up immediately, the way experienced responders do, no grogginess, just awake. "What?" "Cardiac call, 12 miles, let's go." They both moved fast. Out of the bunk room, through the hallway, past the rec room. Eli glanced in as he passed. The TV was on. The volume was low, but it was on. Local news. Neither of them had turned the TV on that night. And when they'd last been in that room, around midnight, it had been off. Eli thought about it during the drive to the call. He almost asked Bev if she'd turned it on before coming to sleep, but the call took everything. The patient was in bad shape, and he didn't bring it up until they were back at the station, around 3:30. "Hey," he said, washing up in the bay, "did you turn the TV on before you came to sleep?" Bev looked at him. "No, I came straight to the bunk room. I was tired." He told her it had been on when they walked past. She didn't say anything for a second. Then, "You were probably just tired. You probably just didn't notice it earlier." And he accepted that, mostly. 2 weeks later, same station, different partner. A newer guy named Jordan who'd been with the service for about 8 months. Eli and Jordan were running the same shift, different night, quiet shift. Around 2 a.m., Jordan was in the rec room watching something on his phone, and Eli was in the kitchen making coffee. Jordan called him from the rec room. Not loudly, just a regular, "Hey." Eli walked over. "What's up?" Jordan pointed at the bunk room hallway. "Who's that?" Jordan asked. Eli looked down the hallway. It was dark, but there was light coming from under the bunk room door, which was fine. There was a nightlight in there, and there was a shape. Just outside the bunk room door, in the shadow at the end of the hall, there was a shape. It looked like a person standing there. He said his exact thought was, "Someone's in the station." His second thought was, "We locked the station door." He called out, "Hello?" The shape didn't move. He took 2 steps toward the hallway. The shape was still there. It looked like someone in a jacket, standing completely still, facing the wall. Eli went to the supply cabinet in the bay and grabbed a flashlight. Jordan was right behind him. They went down the hallway together. Eli clicked the flashlight on. There was nobody there. At the end of the hall, the bunk room door was slightly ajar. They pushed it open. Nothing. The room was empty, both bunks untouched. Jordan checked every room, every closet, every bay. The back exit was still locked from the inside. Nobody was there. And here's the part Eli said he almost didn't include because he doesn't know how to explain it. When they went back to the rec room, the TV was on. Neither of them had turned it on. Neither of them spoke about it much after that night. Eli says he and Jordan have worked probably 30 shifts together since. They've never brought it up. But he says every time he works the overnight at that station, no matter what, no matter how tired he is, he does not look down that hallway after 2 a.m. He just doesn't. Last one. This is from a woman named Kara. She's a mother, 2 kids, both under 5 at the time of this story. She worked nights, not because she wanted to, but because her husband worked days, and between the 2 of them, they were trying to avoid paying for daycare. She worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. at a 24-hour call center for a medical billing company, mostly just answering questions from hospital staff in different time zones. Slow work, a lot of waiting. Her shift was at home. Remote. She worked from a small office she'd set up in what was basically a converted closet at the end of the upstairs hallway. Desk, monitor, headset, a little lamp. The door opened outward into the hall. When it was closed, the room was small but fine. She said she actually liked it because it felt sealed off from the rest of the house, her own little zone. Her husband slept with the kids while she worked. He's a heavy sleeper, she said. Not irresponsible. They had a baby monitor on the kitchen counter that she could see on her phone, and the older kid knew to come get dad if something was wrong. But mostly nights were fine. The kids slept through. The baby monitor was one of those video ones. It sat on the dresser across the room from the crib. She could pull it up on her phone anytime she wanted. She usually checked it a couple of times a night. This particular night was a Wednesday in February, dead of winter. The house was making its usual sounds, pipes, heat clicking on and off, the occasional car on the street outside. Kara was 3 hours into her shift. It was about 2 in the morning. She was in the middle of a call, which was routine. Something about a billing code for a specific procedure. And then through her headset, while she was on the call, she heard something. Not from the call, from the baby monitor app, which she kept open on her phone and had the volume on low. A voice. She froze mid-sentence. The caller on the other end noticed. "Hello? You still there?" "Sorry," Kara said. "I'm here, give me 1 second." She muted herself and picked up her phone. The baby monitor feed was showing the room. Dark, but with the little green glow of the nightlight. The crib in the corner. Her youngest, she'll call him Milo, was asleep. She could see his back rising and falling. He was fine. But the voice had been unmistakable. Not her son's breathing, not a sleep sound, an actual voice, low. And it wasn't speaking clearly enough for her to make out words. It sounded like someone talking quietly in the room. She told herself it was a glitch. Baby monitor interference. They're wireless, they pick things up. She put the phone down and finished the call. Got off around 2:15. She pulled up the monitor again. Room was quiet. Milo, still asleep. Nothing in the corners. She checked the hallway camera too. They had a second small camera pointed at the top of the stairs since the older one, she called him Robbie, had a sleepwalking phase the year before. Hallway was empty. Bedroom door was closed. She told herself she'd imagined it. At 2:47 she heard it again. This time she wasn't on a call. This time she had both hands free and the phone right on the desk. She grabbed it and turned up the volume on the monitor. It was coming from inside the room. A voice, talking quietly. She still couldn't make out words, but this time she could tell it wasn't a glitch or a bleed-through from some neighbor's frequency. This sounded close to the microphone. This sounded like someone standing near the crib. Kara left her office so fast she knocked her chair over. She went down the hall in her socks, no sound. She opened the bedroom door. The room was quiet. Milo was asleep. Her husband was asleep. Robbie's little mat on the floor, they were going through a phase where he wanted to sleep in with them sometimes, was empty. She stood in the doorway for a long moment. Both kids, husband, all breathing, all asleep. She went and found Robbie in his own room. He was in his bed, asleep. She stood in the hallway outside her kid's room and stared at the baby monitor on her phone for probably 2 minutes. The room was still. Nothing moved. Nobody spoke. She went back to her office, finished her shift, didn't sleep when her husband got up at 6. Just stayed awake. She reviewed the monitor footage from that night when the kids were at the park the next afternoon. The app stores 24 hours of footage. She found the clip from 2:17. She found the clip from 2:47. Both times the audio had spiked. She could see it in the little green soundbar at the bottom of the screen. Both times the room looked completely still on camera. Nobody visible. Nothing moved. But the audio, she turned her phone volume all the way up and put it to her ear. She said she could hear it now clearly. It was her son's name, repeated twice both times. Milo, Milo. Spoken quietly, gently almost. The way you'd say it if you were standing over a crib, looking down. She has no explanation. She never heard it again. But she said she replaced the baby monitor with a different brand the next day. Upgraded to one with encrypted frequency and no cloud storage. She's never told her husband. She doesn't want to. She said she included this one detail in her submission. Milo was 14 months old at the time. He'd only started sleeping in his own room 2 weeks before this happened. Before that, he'd been in their room with them. She doesn't know if that's relevant. She thinks it might be. 3 stories, 3 different kinds of wrong. What I keep coming back to is the detail. Dana noticed a broken camera. Eli didn't look at the hallway. Kara turned the volume all the way up. All 3 of them did something that I think most of us would have done. They rationalized. They found a comfortable explanation and held on to it for as long as they could. Because that's what you do, right? That's the human thing. You find the way it makes sense. But there's always that one detail that doesn't quite fit, that one thing you can't explain away no matter how long you sit with it, and that detail is what stays. That's the thing that follows you home. If you've had something happen on a night shift, whether you work security or healthcare or retail, or you work from home at 2 in the morning, like Kara, I want to hear about it. The submission link is in the description. No names will be used without permission. If it's real, if it bothered you, if it's the kind of thing you've never fully been able to explain, send it. I read everything, and if you're watching this alone at night, you're not the only one. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe.